The third goal of a logo is to express meaning. That is why meaning is the third cognitive event in the ARM model. The first M is for meaning. Once a logo grabs a person's attention, and once the right emotional tone is set, a logo then has the opportunity to communicate, that is, to express meaning. To best leverage this opportunity, we want to design logos that express multiple meanings that align with the brand, and that get people to think hard about those meanings. That is one significant difference with this step. Unlike the first two steps of the ARM model, this step, expressing meaning, is the first cognitive event in the ARM model that is processed at a conscious level. And the more people consciously think about the meanings expressed by a logo, the more connections they make in memory, and the more likely the logo and its brand will be liked, recognized, and recalled in the future. The key to making logos express meaning effectively is a principle called propositional density. Propositional density is the amount of information conveyed per unit element in a design. Or stated more plainly, it is how much meaning we are able to pack into a logo with the fewest elements possible. So that we can better understand propositional density, let's define our terms. A proposition is a descriptive statement that cannot easily be broken down into simpler statements. There are two types: surface propositions and deep propositions. Surface propositions describe the visible elements of a logo. For example, in the Apple logo, the surface propositions expressed are the body of the apple, the top leaf, and the missing chunk. That's it, just 3 surface propositions. Deep propositions, by contrast, describe the underlying and often hidden meanings of a logo. Again, in the Apple example, the deep propositions expressed include: apples are a healthy food, the apple tree is the biblical tree of knowledge, a bite from the apple represents gaining knowledge, Sir Isaac Newton's epiphany about gravity came from a falling apple, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, an apple is a traditional gift for a teacher, and so on. Because an apple has rich symbolic meaning, it conveys a lot of deep propositions, at least 6, and probably more. Once we have good estimates for the number of surface and deep propositions expressed by a logo, we can calculate its propositional density. Propositional density is calculated by taking the number of deep propositions and dividing it by the number of surface propositions. That is, the amount of meaning conveyed divided by the number of visual elements used to convey it. In the case of the Apple logo, we have 6 deep propositions divided by 3 surface propositions, which gives us a propositional density of 2, which is very high. A good general goal is to design logos that have a propositional density greater than 1. Let's consider another example. However you feel about President Barack Obama, there is no denying that the logo created for his 2008 campaign is a classic of logo design. Let's analyze its effectiveness at expressing meaning by estimating its propositional density. First, we look at the surface propositions in the logo. They are: the logo contains a hollow blue circle, the logo contains a white interior circle, the logo contains red and white lines, and the red and white lines cut horizontally, covering the lower half of the logo. So we can estimate the number of surface propositions at 4. Now let's look at the deep propositions in the logo. The circle represents an O for Obama, the circle represents unity, the circle represents stability, the red and white lines with blue represent the American flag, the red and white lines with blue represent patriotism, the horizontal arc of red and white represents a landscape like amber waves of grain, The blue represents a clear blue sky. The center white represents a sun rising. A sun rising represents hope, a new day. And I could go on. But already with this count, we have 9 deep propositions with only 4 surface propositions, giving us a propositional density over 2. Again, very high, on par or better than the Apple logo. Making a logo propositionally dense ensures that it efficiently expresses meanings. But we need to make sure that it is expressing meanings that are consistent with one another and meanings that align with brand values. If deep propositions contradict one another, the meanings expressed by the logo will be muddled. We want them to be congruous. And if deep propositions do not align with brand values, your logo will be off message, distracting from versus supporting the brand. Here are 3 more things to keep in mind when using propositional density. 1. When counting surface propositions, you need not count every minor color variation or individual element. What is important is how elements naturally group together when you look at the logo. For example, with the Obama logo, the red and white stripes group as a single element. Therefore, you would not count each red and white stripe as separate propositions. 2. Deep propositions, unlike surface propositions, are highly dependent on the meanings ascribed by the observer. So the idea isn't to brainstorm as many deep meanings as you can think of, but rather to estimate how many meanings are likely to be recognized by your target audience. For example, logos often have visual elements that have historical relevance to the brand, but unless you know the history, you could never guess the meaning. These would not count as deep propositions. And 3. Do not get fixated on exact counts of propositions. They are estimates, and the numbers will vary slightly from person to person. The design goal should be to make sure you have more deep propositions than surface propositions by a safe enough margin to compensate for this variability. So let's summarize. The third goal of a logo is to express meaning. That is why meaning is the third cognitive event in the ARM model. The first M is for meaning. How do we express meaning effectively? We employ the principle known as propositional density. Logos with high propositional density are more liked, recognized, and recalled than logos with low propositional density. To achieve high propositional density, we design logos that express multiple meanings with comparatively few elements, making sure that the meanings are congruous and aligned to brand values.